welcome to the Armageddon Report. Let me ask you, what would you do if you had little notice, little time to prepare, and you knew that the grid potentially was about to go down? Your water would stop working, your power would go out, your car would not turn over, your internet would be gone, all access to the outside world would cease in a blink of an eye. What would you do? If we aren't careful, this could become our reality. If we do not pay heed to the warnings of the past and look to better preparing the future, this is going to be our reality. We will witness the next Carrington Event, and humanity might not ever come back out of the Dark Ages again. We need to prepare. It is coming.
Welcome back to the Armageddon Report. I am your host and producer and owner of the channel, Cody, and I welcome you back. I hope the dramatic entrance was a little bit of an eye-opener, because that's what we're talking about today, is the potential for this to occur again. We are in a new solar cycle coming to another maximum. We are going to have more flares. We are going to have more of these events unfold, and this X1 G3 solar storm event that is going to be impacting the planet starting this evening at about midnight, depending on your local time. I'm Mountain Time. Just depends on where you are in the globe. Midnight your time is when we are going to begin to see the effects. And so we're going to share a couple articles, another video clip on this, and I really just want to drive this home of how detrimentally important this can be. And then we'll make sure we end this video with a few tips and recommendations to make sure you protect yourself, your family, and then of course, your capability for long-term communication. So, alright guys, so let's get started with spaceweather.com. So the report in front of you, as you can see on the graph from the storm down below, this is a G3 X1 solar event. It says NOAA forecasting there's an 85% chance of a geomagnetic storms on October 30th. When a CME is expected to hit Earth's magnetic field, it could be a very potentially strong storm, category G3, which is a higher-end solar storm. This does mean auroras could descend to mid-altitude places like Kansas, Nebraska, Oregon. We spoke about Idaho, Virginia, areas in New York and the East Coast, Alaska, Scotland, a lot of different areas that's going to see this event. The CME's arrival time is uncertain. Estimates range from midday on October 30th to the early hours of October 31st. They're placing it somewhere in the range of around midnight UTC. Just depends on your time frame and your time zone. NOAA forecasters have a sophisticated computer program called WSA-ENLIL, which models the propagation of CMEs through interplanetary space. This is the latest model for the CME now approaching Earth. If you guys take a quick look, you can see on the bottom picture the explosive burst of the CME, and you can see we are the green dots. We are directly in the line of fire for this X-class flare. And why this is so important is that Earth has not in our modern sophisticated era been in the crosshairs of a flare like this. In fact, one of the last times we were in the crosshairs was the Carrington Event of 1859, which melted semiconductors, it burned down buildings, it forced telegraph wires across the intercontinental United States to spark and combust. It was a very, very bad situation, and had that event occurred today, it would shut down our modern way of life. It absolutely would be detrimental to bringing a very, very catastrophic end to what we know as everyday life between our cell phones, electricity, water, air conditioning, everything. So it's one of those things that we don't freak out. We don't think the world is coming to an end, but we pay attention to these things because they're important, and there's something that you don't want to see the worst possible case scenario happen. Riots, pillaging, cities on fire, airplanes dropping out of the sky. I mean, these are all things that could occur if a massive outage of our power grid, and the way of life that we have currently came to a screeching stop because of a CME like this. So we're going to turn it over to some video footage to kind of discuss the Carrington event and what happened in 1859, and know that if that event was to have happened today, we would be in serious trouble.
Could a massive wave of particles from the sun knock out our electrical grid?
All this plasma that comes rushing towards us actually interacts with the Earth's magnetic field. And all of those energetic particles come rushing in. They can induce currents and end up overloading the system. And when you overload the power grids, it could cause blackouts.
Imagine, you wake up to go to work one morning, only to discover that it is not morning yet. What you have mistaken for the sunrise is actually a massive space weather event, causing bright auroras.
So aurora is the beautiful result of space weather. As those energetic particles from the sun are funneled by the Earth's magnetic field down towards our atmosphere, those energetic particles hit nitrogen and oxygen atoms in the atmosphere and they light up.
This is exactly what happened to many people, including miners in the Rocky Mountains, in 1859 during the Carrington Event, the largest geomagnetic storm or major disturbance of the Earth's magnetosphere in recorded history.
What happened there is you were able to see the aurora down to Hawaii. Aurora normally is centered on either the North or South poles. This was a major disturbance in the atmosphere.
Even though the miners were not observing the sunrise, this event can be traced back to the sun.
A solar flare is when the magnetic fields on the sun reconnect in an absolutely explosive way.
Well, when the magnetic field snaps and reconnects, you get a huge release of energy. And that release of energy is the solar flare.
A solar flare is often accompanied by a coronal mass ejection, or CME. This is what caused the Carrington event.
The sun expels billions of tons of charged particles that travel through space, and once they reach Earth, they interact with Earth's magnetic field, compressing Earth's magnetic field.
In one way, you can think of it as when you ring a bell and it vibrates. Well, the CME smacks into Earth, and Earth's magnetic field vibrates.
The Carrington Event of 1859 did cause a disruption in communication due to damaged telegraph lines. But it is nothing compared to the impact an event like that could have today on the modern electrical grid.
Basically, the power grid is like an antenna, and we have this current that gets induced in our transmission line. We call it geomagnetically induced current.
And it is this induced current that can wreak havoc. In 1989, the Quebec region experienced a geomagnetic storm resulting from a significantly large coronal mass ejection, causing 6 million people to lose power for up to 9 hours.
Now, the 1989 blackout was a wake-up call for our industry. The root cause was that between Quebec and the United States, we have long corridors of transmission lines. To transfer this huge amount of power between Canada and the United States, you have to support and maintain a healthy voltage across the network. During this geomagnetic disturbance, we lost 7 of these devices that are critical to maintain voltage, and we saw a voltage collapse, a blackout. There's truly no other phenomena that can cause such a wide area failure. So slowly but surely, we put all the pieces together and we figure out that the root cause was this geomagnetically induced current.
This particular event led engineers and researchers to better understand the harmful impacts of geomagnetic storms on the power grid and prompted them to create new industry standards.
The power grid operators have to take certain protective actions to maintain the stability of the grid.
It's very much like a chess game. Good chess players can almost visualize moves and counter moves. Well, that's exactly what we do. Every minute we're running thousands upon thousands of what-if scenarios trying to checkmate this geomagnetic disturbance.
The power grid isn't the only thing on Earth affected by geomagnetic storms. They can also wreak havoc on GPS technology.
You really don't want to land a plane when you don't have GPS.
Airlines might reroute based on a threat from space weather.
And they can really confuse pigeons.
pigeons get lost. We interact with the pigeon racing community and provide them with details of the geomagnetic activity before they launch their pigeons, because if it's too geomagnetically disturbed, they might not return.
For many reasons, it is important to know when space weather might impact Earth, and researchers are getting better at being able to predict it.
Today, we are where terrestrial weather was about 20 years ago.
There's a lot we learned in that evolution of meteorology that we can apply to the evolution of space weather.
When we see a solar flare, we have 8 minutes from the time that flare happens until the most energetic particles get here. 12 hours to 18 hours for the coronal mass ejection itself to hit.
We can put out a watch when we first detect this thing and determine it's Earth directed. That gives the utility companies time to get ready for this.
We are now entering a new 11-year solar cycle, which means for the next several years, the activity on the sun will increase until we reach what is called solar maximum in 2025.
As you approach solar maximum, the probability and likelihood of having more and more CMEs increases.
So, as we start a new cycle and approach solar maximum again, should we be concerned about the next big geomagnetic storm?
Your worry level should be low. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't prepare for it, because there's no guarantee that it won't happen tomorrow. For power companies, for airlines, for human space flight, for satellite operators, maybe pigeon racers. They have to keep this in mind.
We can say that we understand the problem, we have situational awareness, we have operating procedures, and we continue to engineer the problem out, designing a grid that can withstand a 1-in-100-year type of event. We've done our homework, and we're ready to handle the next solar cycle.
Alright guys, so I hope that video kind of brought some things into perspective for you. Seriously, we don't know what's going to happen. This is not fear, this is not doom, this is none of that. This is awareness. So no, this is coming. This is traveling thousands of miles an hour directly at our planet. Think of a shotgun and a target, and you are the target. The shotgun shell has been fired, and it is moving at exponential speed directly at you. We don't know what's going to happen, but all we can do is be prepared and be smart about it. So my following recommendations are pretty simple. Tonight, turn off all your major electronics, turn off your TVs, turn off your computers and your laptops, shut your phone all the way down. If you feel you need to wrap it in tinfoil to protect it, that's not being lunacy, that's not fear-mongering, that's not conspiracy theory, that's proven. That will protect your device from a massive CME burst or from a supercharged setting of particles that could completely destroy your electronics. Communication is the most important thing we have. It's one of our biggest assets. Some people have gone as far as saying ground your vehicles. Don't ground your cars to a fence. Don't do anything that could shock you. Don't do anything that could harm you. Be smart about this. Do your research. You have time. But be prepared. Be smart. Have food. Have water. Have maybe your generator with some fuel in it just in case the power goes out. Watch your news, pay attention to your neighbors, stay with your tight-knit group of friends and family that you communicate with and those that you share this type of information with, and most importantly, just stay prepared. Make sure that you have always got preparedness in the event of an emergency, and this could be an emergency or it could be absolutely nothing. We'll know in the next 24 to 48 hours, but it will start impacting Earth here by midnight UTC. So, with that being said, thank you guys for subscribing. Thank you for watching this video. Click the bell, click the subscribe button. Get this out to your friends and family and people who you feel this news is important to. And as always, stay safe. We'll talk to you soon, and take care.